Welcome back to Real Estate Ramblings. I'm Amy Shrader with Remax Real Estate 10, and joining me today is
Michelle Hodges.
Christina Stump.
great to have you ladies. Ashley hopefully will be back with us in a couple of weeks. She's having to take some infusions right now. So, a lot going on right now, it seems like. What do y'all think?
I do. I'm having a lot of buyers. A lot of people are very curious. A lot of showings. It's just like in the last 2 weeks, I feel like it's really been a lot of showings.
I know. I haven't seen you very much the past couple of weeks.
I really have. I mean, I'm very thankful for it. I mean, I do think they're being way more selective because we're seeing a lot more, but it's their investment. I get it. So I have spent the weekends, the days, but again, I'm just so thankful because nothing brings me more joy than finding those people home. So it's been a good couple of weeks to say the least.
Same. You can tell the spring market is definitely on the rise. I've been busy out. I was actually showing a big tract of land on Saturday, and of course, gorgeous piece of property over in Tazewell, and enjoyed the day over there with those buyers, and have more folks coming in. So yeah, it's been a little busy.
Good deal. So, tell me about a win that you celebrated last week.
Well, I've had some clients that I've been working with for a few weeks. We actually got under contract, and due to certain reasons, it fell through. So we have really been looking, and they decided to make another trip down, and we found the perfect piece of property. So it was such a win to see that family. It's a mother and her son. They're really, really close. One's out in Utah, one's in Texas, and to bring them back together here is just such an amazing feeling. So that was really the highlight of my week last week.
Well, good. What about you?
Well, for me, I don't know. Unfortunately, I didn't have a closing last week, but I did have, when I was out showing, I had an interesting comment from the buyers that I was working with. It was really neat because we spent the day, and of course, when you're looking at a big tract of land, that takes a little while to go out there and look at the property. So we're looking all over, and he turned around and he said, "Wait a minute, is this your listing?" And I said, no, it's not my listing. It was somebody, that works over in that area a little more. And he said, so you can represent us. And I said, yes, absolutely. So for me, I think that was so encouraging for him to, a lot of buyers don't kind of step out and think about their own representation. So, with some of the changes that are coming around recently for buyers to start thinking, about that and how important that is, and, how you work that out, to me was a real plus. I was really encouraged by that.
Yeah. And I mean, to me, a lot of times, especially with land, buyers will reach out to the list agent because they feel like that's where they're going to get the best information.
Right.
And I kind of understand that thought process, but at the same time, who's that listing agent representing?
The seller.
Yes.
The seller, right. So when somebody is looking for land and they get a buyer's agent who has prepared for that showing and is out there sharing all kinds of information with them, they really appreciate that.
Oh, yes.
And I know that's kind of one of the things that I think as a group that we tend to do a little bit better
Absolutely.
than most agents.
Yes.
So what do you think is one of the reasons that we are more successful in selling land than some other agents?
Because we spend time in it. I mean, we actually learn it. I mean, obviously, one of the first things, like I said, when I first started, you kind of came up to me, come on, I'm going to teach you how to sell, lake properties. And a part of that was land. And we spend time learning about what it takes when you're buying a piece of land. And this is another thing that folks need to realize, that when they're buying land, it's not just about the acreage. It's like how much of that is usable, and what is the information on that land? What can you do with it? What can't you do with it? We understand. We're going to dig in a little bit, make sure that we know about either deed restrictions or HOA, or we need to talk about zoning. How's it zoned? What's going to be allowed there, and how much money you're going to have to put into that to prep. For, even if a lot of folks around here maybe want to put up a camper sometimes because they don't think, again, for them, okay, if I spend $8,000 in their minds for a little piece of land, I can just throw my camper on it. It's that much easier. It doesn't work that way. There's much other, you got to think about your water source. You have to think about your septic source. So I think that's what makes us
get
better.
that camper up on that land.
Right.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
I think the fact that we spend time educating ourselves about, what it means to buy land and sell land, I think that it really does make a difference. And I will say this, not every listing agent that puts land out there truly understands the land that they're listing.
That's very true.
I think the resources that we have, the things that you have taught us, there's special apps. You can walk that property.
Absolutely.
You can do so many different things. I mean, I literally, when I go show land, we're walking that. I've got my boots in the car. Like, I want them to see everything. And just like last week with my clients, we went out there 2 different times and we walked and walked. And I mean, having those restrictions, looking in title search, or doing all the things
Absolutely.
because it matters. That's their investment, and they need to know what they're getting.
Absolutely.
So getting T-Deck, doing soil scientists, doing all that, and I mean that takes a while. And with your guidance, I feel pretty good with land. I really do, because I mean, just keep digging and you'll find it. That's one thing in the very, very beginning she taught me.
Mm-hmm.
Go look, see if there's restrictions that's been amended. Go keep searching and searching, and that's what I do. And so far, it has served me well.
Absolutely. I mean, I enjoy selling land. And especially like those big tracts. Of course, that was 150 some acres, so we didn't walk it.
Well,
all of it,
yeah.
all of it anyway. Now we walked some of the, and a lot of it. You have different ranges in Tennessee, and that's one of the things that I think a lot of folks, they don't know when they like. As we're out riding, one of the questions I'll get is, well, they want you to kind of shoot from the hip on the price of that property, and that is very hard to do in Tennessee because there's so many different landscapes in Tennessee.
Oh yeah, people call and say, "So what's the average price per acre in East Tennessee?"
Absolutely.
You can't do.
And I'm like,
That's not how it
No.
works here. You have to go with highest and best use, and
yeah, there's so many variables that play into the price.
Yes.
Yeah.
I get that a lot too, and I'm just like, that's not how it works.
well, and I think that's important for other folks to understand too. Again, when they're selecting an agent, not only to look but also to sell their property, somebody that truly understands how to price that property. So you're either assisting your folks and making sure they're getting the best value, or you're assisting your sellers and making sure that they're getting the most out of it.
And one thing I've noticed, sometimes I've seen on like certain listings, they'll say unrestricted, but once we dug a little bit more, and they'll kick back to me, well, why does it say that? I'm like, well, here's the deeds. This is what it references. This is for your protection. It doesn't really matter what that write-up said. So I have caught myself in
Absolutely.
that situation a couple times, and it just has taught me, never go with what it says.
Right.
Never.
Well,
I mean, it's a good starting point. If you're looking
Right.
for
Oh,
unrestricted, you
absolutely.
have to go by that. But yeah, a lot of agents don't understand it. I love it because I've seen some that say unrestricted, and then like in private remarks they'll say no
Right.
single wides allowed. Well, that's
Right,
not
not
unrestricted.
unrestricted. Right.
Exactly.
And that's one of the things that I explained to somebody. I can't remember what piece of land that we were looking at, but it was under zoning laws. So I'm like, okay, so just because you don't have deed restrictions or you don't have HOA doesn't mean you don't have zoning restrictions as well. So you have to know all those variables.
Exactly. And unfortunately, a lot of our counties have put some zoning restrictions in against living on a camper on your
Right.
property.
Absolutely.
Because they felt, it was going to pull the home values and stuff down. So it may be unrestricted, but
What's the zoning?
what's the zoning for it? Because I know an agent who had to buy a piece of property back because it was sold as unrestricted. The person put a camper on it to live in, and the county came knocking on their door. So
Wow, yeah.
she ended up having to buy that property back from that buyer and reimburse her, and it wasn't necessarily her fault, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because it didn't have deed restrictions, but that buyer didn't have their own agent to be checking the zoning,
And
so it
that's
kind of fell back.
important. That's good. That's important.
Yeah. So, what is your most memorable experience to date selling real estate? Now, it could be funny, it could be a horror moment, whatever, but just when you're thinking about, the past few years that you've been selling real estate, what is one memory that you're like, I will never forget that?
My first closing.
Okay.
Just walking in there, I just don't even know if I can even have the words to explain how that felt. It was the best feeling in the world to know this family is going home, to see them smiling. It will forever be a staple memory in my brain. Forever.
All right.
I think it was one of my very favorite memories was when I first started, and you know, to put like, so I sold a piece of lakefront property. It was both tracts were less than an acre, but they are in the most gorgeous spot sitting on the lake. And of course, the price point on that, the asking price for both lots was $409, and we ended up getting it under contract for like $375. And in my mind at that time, that's a house price even. I mean, and a high house price. So I was just totally amazed. Like, first of all, oh, this is never going to happen. I'm never going to get this under contract. And then I did. And then you're like, the whole time you're like, whoa, wow, okay, now, and you're working every angle to make sure it doesn't, you know, fall off, because obviously you want to get it to the closing table. But then, you know, I kept thinking, okay, something's going to happen. But I was working it and watching it. But then we got it to the closing table, and I was like, wow. It was a very cool feeling. It was like my first hint of success in this role, and it was very cool.
Good deal. Well, for me, I have a little bit more time to go back on, but for me, probably one of my most memorable is when I had the first listing that sold, and driving back out to that property to pick up my sign, to pick up my lockbox. And, you know, when you're a new agent, you're working with a lot of buyers. And when you get a listing, like you're focused, man. You gotta get that listing
absolutely.
sold. And so to me, that was just like okay, I did it. I sold the listing.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And it was up in Sneedville, which was totally outside of my realm of knowing where I was and what I was talking about at the time. So that, to me, will probably be, you know, that memory that stays with me is driving out there to get that sign and lockbox, and just, you kind of give yourself a pat on the back, like, okay, I did it. I'm good.
If I could share one more, I do have one that popped up just while you were talking about that. If you remember, I was working with Karen, and forgive me, I'm forgetting her last name at this moment, Carbino. And anyway, so I'd gone and taken her and her husband out to dinner after we closed on their first house, and I will never forget her looking up at me and thanking me. And she literally was in tears, and she said, this is the first time I've ever worked with a realtor that I knew was working for me. And that was super special to me, and really kind of, and it stuck with me, as far as how important it is for somebody to see your efforts and working for their best interest. So yeah, sorry, as you were thinking about that, I was like, you know what, that was probably the coolest moment.
It's a great feeling, because I don't really think people realize what all we really do.
Mm-hmm.
I think they think we just open doors.
Yeah, not at all.
It goes way beyond that.
Right.
So for that,
and they were relocating to Tennessee, and this was a new construction, and there'd been a few bumps in the road, which is likely with a new construction. You just kind of brace for it, you know it, and you adjust. But, you know, sometimes you do have to kind of push back a little bit, and I think my folks felt like I did what I needed to do for them. And that'll never leave me.
Well, and I've shared this story before. Like, you were talking about your first closing, and yeah, that closing is like ingrained in my memory for life. And those people, you know, they became like my best friends. They were my heart and soul. But they wanted acreage, and they wanted a view. And I had been selling real estate about 2 weeks. Like, I started selling real estate July the 1st. And these people had come into town, and I asked Lisa McBride to go out with me because she was my broker at the time, and I'm brand spanking new. I don't know anything about anything.
Right.
So I asked her, can you kind of go out with us and show me like what I'm supposed to do? How do you sell land? And so we went out, and Lisa showed them, you know, we went to the different properties, and nothing had just really stuck out to them. And Lisa said, well, now I know about 50 acres. It's kind of across from the overlook. you know, it's for sale by owner, but we can go check it out. I know the guy. So we went over there and yeah, I mean, they fell in love. And so she called the guy that was selling the property. He met him there, put him in his pickup truck, and took him up this little goat trail to a higher spot and was like, you know, check this view out. They had to buy it. So we bought it, had some hiccups that happened, but we got them all worked out. They closed on it and they built a house. And I stayed in touch with them over the years. I sent them a little email, hey, happy anniversary, you know, da 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 da. And so when they got ready to list that house, they've called me. And so we currently have it listed now. But I always appreciated them because I didn't make any bones about the fact that I was a new agent.
Yes.
You know, and they were fine with that. They still wanted to use me. So it's just cool to get together with them and catch up and chat. And, you know, they have seen the progression in my career from where I started to where I am now. And they're like proud parents, you know.
That's what I was about to say.
They helped to contribute to that.
Yes.
So when we had the closing, they were in town for it. And we went to Applebee's to have dinner and celebrate. And at the time, I went to Applebee's quite frequently. So everybody there knew me, and the server that we had, you know how they'll come out and sing happy birthday to you? Yeah. Well, he got everybody to come out and sing like a little song congratulating me on my first closing.
Oh,
so it was a really cool moment, but like, you know, your first clients, I think you will always remember those people. And like, you know, it's kind of like they catapulted you to help you get started. So
you will forever be in contact with them.
Well, hopefully. They are getting up in age now, so that's the reason they're having to sell here. This was a summer home for them, and then they live in Florida as well. So having some health issues and just can't manage two places at one time. But so yeah, we do have that up on the market if you want to come see a house that has some gorgeous views across from the overlook. Give us a call. We'd love to show it to you.
Tell them about the gift you get.
Tell them about what?
The gift. The picture?
Oh, yeah. So, for their closing gift, normally I give it to people at closing, obviously, but this one's going to be an extended sale. I mean, we already knew that when we listed the property. So, I took the view that they had, one of our photos that we got the photographer to do, and we put it on a big canvas and sent it to them. So, they still have that view that they can check out.
I thought that was so cool.
When they're there. So, they called me. They were crying when they got it. So
it's like a piece of Tennessee will always be with them from that. That is so special. Oh my gosh, I love it.
I thought that was awesome.
So, all right. So let me ask you. Let's shift gears a little bit. You got a buyer from out of state who's wanting to purchase here, but they need to sell their home there. What advice do you give them in this market?
Well, the advice I actually have one now. That is under contract, and of course is contingent on the sale of their home, and you know we're trying to work through that, and of course they live a little further north, and they're also trying to move a house that's on the lake, and I think their realtor felt like it was you know, maybe a little early in the season, and that's why the house hadn't already sold. But one of the things that we talked about was, you know, some of the things that kind of go together is making sure that they've got it in the right price point. You know, their other home, making sure that that's in the right price point, you know, and doing what they can to move that house so that, of course, you can keep moving forward on this house. So that's one of the things that we talked about was, you know, where's your price point at? And so when they were talking about reducing the price point, we talked about the fact that they issue pre-quals in $25,000 increments, you know, and so one of the things that I suggested was that they drop it down. You know, you and I talked about that, was that they drop that down and stay within that, so they got a whole new audience when they came back out.
I was about to say the pricing. I'm like, you know, have you talked to your agent? Do you know those comps? Because it's going to be very critical to keep that one moving if we want to have someone accept we're contingent on your home selling. So I think that is one of the most important things. And I've came into that twice now, and I've actually even have reached out, talked to that agent, like, look, where do we stand? They're wanting to do an offer. So I think being on the same page is so important, and communication with everybody.
Everybody. That's what I started to say.
Yeah.
Communication is unbelievably important because, I mean, of course they're going to be out of state. They're, they don't know what's going on here. So keeping everybody up to date and then making sure that you know what's going on with the house there so that you can keep the communication flowing with the listing agent, I think keeps everybody calm. If you're not communicating, people start to get on pins and needles. So, we've just tried to keep those lines of communication open, and the seller too on their expectations, for the buyers, and making sure the buyers understand where the sellers are on everything.
So, do you encourage them to list their house before they make that offer, or how do you do that?
I've done it both ways. It just really depends on how that agent feels, how fast it can move. Because I feel like if it's not on the market, you can do it contingent on it'll be on the market. I've done it within like a week or so, but then you also have that fear of the unknown. Are they going to get the attention on their house? So I always think it's best to have it listed just so you can see that, and then we know what we can do.
Right.
I think it's a little tough to do in this market, if I'm honest, because especially depending on the house and the market or the price range that house is in the market. If it's a 350, 250 to 350 house, there's a good chance it's not going to stay. And I mean, perhaps you won't get the offer, but if you don't try, you're certainly not going to get it, or you won't get the contract. But so it depends on that. But I suggest we at least go ahead and make the offer, and if they'd rather us wait, then we go to work and we get the house on the market.
Well, and again, we're talking about homes that are buyers that are out of state that are moving here. So we have to remember that a lot of times those homes are going to be priced a lot higher than
Absolutely.
the same house would be priced here. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
I was trying to think of who I was talking to. And it was like a 1,500 square foot, 3-bed, 2-bath house, around $300,000 our average sales price. They were like, yeah, back home this would be like $500,000.
Yep.
And you're just like,
yes.
Yeah, I can't imagine paying that for that house.
Absolutely.
But everything's a lot higher in other places. So.
It is, but especially to me, I mean, if they want the home, then I'm at least going to make the offer to try to go ahead and get it under contract, and again, speak with that listing agent. Let them know that I'm on top of the details. Let them know that I'm going to be in constant communication with my buyers, and that I'm going to be the kind of agent that communicates back with them so that they're more comfortable with accepting that offer. If the seller would prefer, then, obviously I'll go back and talk to my client about that. We'll go ahead and get it on the market and then see what happens. But especially for somebody that's relocating, it's hard for them to make that decision to put their home on the market till they know they've got another place to go. I mean, that's a big, it's just, there's a lot going on in between. So I think it's easier for buyers if the house, they've already got, where they're going under contract.
It is easier for the buyers, but it's a lot harder, I think, for sellers to step out on faith when somebody's from out of town.
I get that.
What I mean?
I totally get it, and that's why I said I try to carry and communicate with that listing agent. If the seller is not open to that idea, then we'll regroup and try a different option. But I would prefer it be under contract before they put theirs on the market. If it doesn't work out that way, then we work around the other way.
Yes. I had some clients from California, and they came down, found the house that they love. They were worried about putting theirs up until we found it, so we did, and I went ahead and sent the offer, and they gave us a 20-day time frame.
Absolutely.
It has to be listed, it has to be under contract, all the moving parts. So me and the agent out in California, we were like so close on communication, and by the grace of goodness, it all just fell into place. They had a beautiful home. I think within like day 8 or something crazy. I mean, it was under contract, everything moved. It couldn't have been more smoother.
Right.
So I think it's just, again, that communication and the pricing was great. They didn't have to do a reduction. It was continuous showings. So I think you just have to take every situation and just look at it and
Agreed.
just see what all it entails.
What works? Yeah, what's the
Yes.
best solution for everybody?
Yes.
But again, if I'm working on the buyer side of that, I'm definitely looking at
Mhm.
how can I make their transition the easiest, and again, and trying to keep those communications open. And you're absolutely right about that time frame. I think that helps the sellers feel more comfortable with that option.
Yeah, the sellers on both sides, like the one that we wrote the offer to, they were so understanding. They were so nice, and they were older, so they were just going to get on their RV to travel.
Mhm.
So they were like, "We have the time. We just don't want to hold our house looking pending for so long if it's not going to move."
Absolutely.
So it couldn't have happened with a better seller, but I was so thankful it came together.
Well, and that's fair for the sellers. I mean, if the seller has a right to know how long, they're gonna have to wait to know something.
Well, they gave us 20 days, and honey, we
I
had
think
that
that's
thing way
perfect
but
and
under
fair.
the 20 days, and we went to closing.
Good for you.
Good
So-
deal. All right, so of course, huge topic in the news lately is that NAR settlement, right?
Yes,
And a lot of information out there, a lot of it's wrong,
correct.
but a lot of information out there. Have you all had anybody, either buyer or seller, that has brought up the settlement when you're having a conversation with them?
So far, I actually have not.
Okay.
I'm very surprised. I don't know why it's not happened yet, but I truly haven't yet.
And nor have I. I mean, I've read a lot of things on Facebook and a lot of misinformation from the media, and then, based off of that misinformation, you have misguided opinions from people throwing those things out there. So I've seen that, but no, I've not had any buyers come to me with real concerns at this point.
Well, I've had two sellers that, as I went on the listing appointment, we're going over things. Typically the question comes up is, what is your commission? And during that conversation, it's, well, now what's this I've been hearing on the news about the commissions, and I'm not going to have to pay a buyer's agent now, or like, what is all that? So it's good that they bring it up. Like, I always thank people, oh, that's a great question, let's talk about that. And just try to explain to them, nothing has actually changed yet.
Right.
DOJ has to approve the settlement, probably be July or August before we see those changes. But then I try to go into, the details with them of commission has always been negotiable. This is the part that would change if the settlement's approved, and why, even though you're not required to offer a compensation to the buyer, why that's still a good idea, and it's going to be different for different price ranges of homes, I feel like. If you have a house that is going to be attractive to people from out of state, where maybe they've sold a home, for twice what it would bring here, those people may be better able to pay a down payment, pay their closing costs, and pay a buyer's agent. But you're going to have other people, depending on the price range again, that, if they have to pay their own closing costs, there's no way they're going to have money to pay a buyer's agent. So that's, to me, it's like a strategy session. Let's talk about the way it's all going to hammer out.
Right.
And it's not that we can't pay a buyer's agent. It's just we have to call it seller concessions now, instead of offering a flat co-op. So I think it's going to be interesting. I just wish that we had more guidance right now
Exactly.
from NAR as to how all this is going to shake out and play out. Like, it's been,
I think so,
3 or
too.
4 weeks now.
Yes, and what I see happening, Amy, I think because we haven't had more guidance at this point, I think everybody's got their own ideas about how they're going to handle this and how they're going to handle that. And I think there's going to be, I think everybody's going to have to figure out when the changes are completely made, how they run their business and what they're going to offer in their business and how we have to adjust at that time. It's certainly still evolving, like you said, but at this point, I think you're going to have so many different people doing it so many different ways.
Well, I don't know that you're going to have so many different ways to do it when the ball drops, so to speak.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I don't know that they're going to be able to get it in place by July if we don't have any guidance out there right now, because like listing agreements here in Tennessee are going to have to change because it spells out,
Yes, it
the
does.
co-op.
Yes, it does.
Our exclusive buyer rep agreements are going to have to change.
Yes.
Our MLS fields, our data fields, things like that.
You're right.
There's a lot of moving parts, and that's just for Tennessee. Like each state's going to have their own.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've heard it said that come July 1st, this will all go into effect. Well, I don't see how they're going to do that.
See, I don't either, because I just feel so unprepared by that. Do I understand what's going on? But the guidance is not there fully yet.
Right.
So I just feel like go with it until we have a better understanding, and then we'll know a little bit better of how to handle it.
Well, there's definitely, I think you got to leave room here for flexibility. Absolutely. I mean,
Yes.
if you're getting all torn up about it, we just got to, keep thinking through the processes and the changes that are coming and the best way to approach those. Again, for your own business, how do I need to approach this with my clients? And then, start practicing on putting those things into play, but it's all going to change. I mean, we still don't know. And those moving parts, like you said, just kind of make it.
And I've got like a handful of clients that the unfortunate part is they barely are qualified, like by a hair qualified.
Yes.
So it really concerns me of them being removed out of the game because of that expense. So it's just, I'm definitely curious to see how this fall plays out, because I want to find those families homes so bad, and I'm hoping we can achieve that before then. But it worries me if we don't, where do they stand?
So, and I still think that there are going to be ways to work that in, ways that we can do different things. And so I don't think they're going to be completely out of the game, but I do definitely think that we're going to have to think about how we approach that. We're going to have to put some things into play so that we can still keep those people relevant. I mean, we have to do that, because you're right. For some people, paying that is, especially up front, may not be such a big deal, but for others, it incapacitates them in the market. I mean, they just can't do anything.
Well, I know, like back when I bought my first house in the year 2000, I did a THDA loan to buy the house, and at that time, Tennessee still required a physical survey be done on any house or piece of property that was sold. And, it's in a subdivision, the house was, so everybody knew where the lot lines were, but you're having to pay somebody $400 or $500 to come out and stake that lot again. And, that's no longer a requirement here in Tennessee, because they found it was cost prohibitive to first-time home buyers being able to afford a property.
Oh, wow. What a good point.
Yep.
And that's how I feel with moving forward.
Right.
Yes.
And I mean, you had the earnest money, you had appraisal costs, you had a home inspection, and then you were having to pay for this survey. So, to me, I think that's the part, even our president got up and said in an announcement after this settlement of, housing's going to be more affordable now because, these realtors are not going to be taking all this commission. And that's not at all what the settlement said. It did not say what we were charging or what we could not charge. But house prices are house prices. I mean, that's supply and demand.
Absolutely.
Simple law of economics. And I don't see home prices coming down unless their goal is to just bump a lot of people out of being able to afford a house.
That's my worry right there. And I mean, I hope that we can still bring it together where it's on the financing side or what. But I do have a lot of buyers under $200,000.
Agreed.
And they want a home so bad. They can taste it. They're living it. I'm seeing it. I'm spending time with them. And stuff is held back. They may not have earnest money right now this week, or they may not have inspection money. And if they did have to take on that expense, it just, I don't know. I really do worry about those people. And that's the biggest goal in life, and something of this nature to prevent that. It's just like, it's been like that for so long. And you never want to say too much. So I just really hope that those people can still buy homes at that time.
Well, I just feel like with the current market, the way that it is, you know, especially those first-time home buyers and those folks in that price range are very close to being priced out of the market as it is. It's tough. I mean, so you have to go to battle for those. If those listings come up that you can get to, you better get your people to them. You need to know who your people are. You need to know what they need, and you need to be on the move on anything in that range. Because again, part of the problem is if you're looking in that range, not only the buyer has to qualify, and you have to get all those expenses in that $200,000 that they're qualified for, you know, but then you also have to have the house qualify and appraise at that as well. And that can be tough. That can be very tough in this market at that price point.
Yeah.
A few of my clients where we're not achieving what we want on a stick-built home, we have been seeing maybe land, single wides. They're going, you know, we're trying other avenues to see if we can get that, because it's just not there. And then when we do find something, they don't really have the expense to take on like remodeling or doing this, that, and the other. And I know there's different resources you can use for that, but still they need something more affordable. Right. That needs nothing. So I have noticed there's a couple of mine that we have started seeking that route.
Well, to me, that's one of the great things that like Union Home Mortgage will offer is putting a manufactured home, brand new manufactured home, on land and doing a construction loan for that to help finance in those extra costs of getting the home moved, getting a septic, hooking up water, electric, all that kind of stuff. And you're going to have, you know, semi-competitive rates. And the great thing is, if it's in a USDA rural development eligible area, it's 100%.
Right.
And that's just, I mean, to me, I think that is the best product that's out there right now to help home buyers who are first-time buyers looking for affordable housing. Now, you're not going to get the Mac Daddy 28 by 80, you know what I'm saying, and put it on a piece of land for under $200. But you can buy a 1,1600 square foot home, get it put on there. And manufactured housing is a lot different today than it was.
Oh, absolutely.
Even back when I started.
Absolutely.
So, you know, used to it was, well, a mobile home's going to lose lose value as soon as you put it on the piece of property. Mm-hmm. That's not always the case now. I mean, I've seen some that people bought and maybe they had to remodel it, or they've just maintained it really well. They've added a garage or, you know, different things. Absolutely. And they make money on them. So
I think that's the biggest thing is just maintenance. You know, a home will fall in around you if you don't maintain it. Regardless of what it is, if you just keep the maintenance up, you've got something there. Absolutely. It's just, you've got to do it. So I have noticed a couple of my clients, we are
looking at that route.
We're exploring options just because they're tired of renting. They're like, I should be paying a mortgage, and I totally agree, but they also got to be smart at the same time. So I don't know if that might help some other people out there or whatever, but like you said it best, they have advanced so much. I mean, it's a great option. You're still getting a brand new home. They love the fact that they have that warranty. Which anything can happen, but when you take a new structure, you may be good for a while to come, and that also plays a big part in it too. These people are young, they're in their 20s, early 30s, and they don't have just bukus of money over here. So I think that might become
gives a peace of mind, because
it does.
They're not worried about the HVAC, they're not worried about the roof, they're not worried about having to replace appliances. I mean, there's just kind of a certain guarantee that they feel.
Peace of mind.
You know, that, okay, I'm going to be good for a little while.
Yeah, or they're in here and get established, Yes,
absolutely. They've got married, they're thinking of kids coming up, so really all their money's going to go to having babies. So not having, diaper, you know how expensive having kids are.
Trust me.
Yeah. So it's like you said best, not having to worry about that roof or having to worry about something, because they're ready to start their family. And I just think I love it. I hope I can make it happen. I've been in a couple
of them that when I went, if I had been blindfolded and just, you set me in the front door, took my blindfold off, and I looked around, I would have not known that I was in a manufactured home. And now the outside of them, a lot of times, yes, you're still going to be able to tell, But even that
Sometimes
is
it's
a
hard.
lot different than it used to be. I mean, you drive by these dealerships and you'll see some that have like a little side porch,
I know they're so
already
cute.
built in, and
You can get fancy with the bottom, do the little stone,
yeah,
but
I
not
mean,
the
they can do a
underpin.
lot of different things.
Listen, I've had to look at the paper before and see, is this a rancher or is this a mobile? Yeah, or a manufactured?
Well, and I've seen houses built that I would have swore was a manufactured home. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Like they
Yes.
just went with that look, and yeah, it can be deceiving sometimes. But I think, a lot of people, especially around here, I think they kind of put down manufactured housing and they feel like, it's just a trailer. And it's not just a trailer.
Oh,
anymore.
no.
I mean,
not.
they are
Certainly isn't.
HGTV gorgeous
Yes.
inside.
Smart, efficient. I mean,
Yes.
they're all the bells and whistles. And to me, like, it's a home.
Mm-hmm.
Lose the perception of everything. And I just think it would be such an honor to even have a home.
Oh,
Who cares what it
absolutely.
is? And that's what I've been, I don't know, I'm just
Yeah.
excited for them.
Again, just trying to figure out, and I think that's great to think outside the box again and look at different ways that you can help them be able to find qualifying homes for the qualified buyers. So,
Well, and at that time, they kind of had a bad, not bad, but they're kind of, a trailer, this or that. Well, let's go to the lot. And it changed their whole mindset because, they've heard so many people down in them or, well, you're not good enough if you don't have a stick builder,
Yeah.
all the things.
absolutely.
And I've actually done that with 2 people now. And I'm like, what does it hurt? Let's just explore options. You want to be a homeowner? Then let's see everything. And she was just like amazed. Like you said, when you walked in there, obviously there's different price points for every home.
Mhm.
But there's some of them you can walk in and you're just like amazed. It's got the kitchen island. It's got the bedrooms. It's
got granite countertops.
yes.
You don't have the strips up the side of the wall anymore.
Right.
And
They're
she was-
drywall and the roof
Absolutely.
pitch, and
It's not the
Yeah.
paneling and it's not this. And
it's not that maroon or green
No.
carpet that we've all seen in these mobile
Absolutely.
homes. I mean, you'll have nice laminate flooring,
absolutely.
tile flooring in the kitchen and the bathrooms and stuff. So yeah,
They've came a long way. And
they're like Virginia Slim. They've come a long way.
in the bathrooms, a lot of times they've got these big showers, double vanities.
Oh, absolutely.
And as a woman getting ready or just whatever, who doesn't want a nice bathroom?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. And those, listen, for those types, like in those price points, you can't find better bathrooms
No.
in those types of homes.
And closets.
I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
For $200,000 or less, if that's your budget, why would you not do that?
Exactly.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, the hardest part at that point becomes finding a piece of land.
Yes.
Yes.
So if we have any developers that happen to come across, and to me, I think that would be like the best-selling neighborhood that Hamlin County could have is if somebody would buy a tract of land and develop that into a nice manufactured home community. Like everybody gets a half, 3/4 of an acre. If it doesn't have city sewer available, that's fine. You're giving them enough land. They can put the septic on. But that community would keep value if you put those
Absolutely.
restrictions in that,
Yes,
it's
it
going
would.
to have to be manufactured home, X number of years newer. You're going to have to do this,
Keep
this,
it
and this.
maintained. Yes.
I mean, you could have a great little community and that place would sell out.
Absolutely.
We just don't have the inventory.
I
And
wish
like you
nothing
said-
more would happen than that.
And like
I
you
know.
said, hold its value. I mean, have those restrictions in place that, so that the whole community is taken care of. I mean, I agree with you 100%. Years ago, you would thought the value would decrease. You're seeing mobile homes, or not mobile homes, but manufactured homes at this point that sell, on a nice lot just as a home would.
And I mean, you can take that as far as you want, as far as like the subdivision and the amenities. But I mean, you could build like a little clubhouse
Oh,
with
it'd
a
be
pool
great for
and,
our
I mean, I can see it in my
Me too.
mind.
And I wish developers or investors would see that more, kind of how we view it. Because, is the 3, 4, 5+ not nice? But what about the people that's not in that range? And it would just go over so great.
I've actually got a friend who is an investor, and he has spoken of that actually several times. But, he's just looking for the right land. So I think he's got a great idea, like you talked about, but he, just finding that land in Hamlin County that he can do that with. But, yeah.
And I mean, it's going to be an investment because you're going to have to put roads in, you got to put the curbs, you got to run the water, electric, cable, internet, all that kind of stuff. But it's a huge step forward in affordable housing here in Henley County.
And we need it so bad.
We do. We do. And I don't know if y'all have ever shown up in, I think, the Tazewell area, Claiborne County area. There is someone up there, and they are doing what they call, I think they're called cross mods.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like a manufactured home, but it's altered, and they'll have like attached garages and stuff to them.
Yes, I've seen one of those, and they literally look like a house. They have, and you would never know. They are the cross mods, and I can't believe you mentioned that because we had just seen those. Oh my gosh, they're amazing.
They are, and especially to have an attached garage, it really does give it that home feel. You know what I'm saying?
You can even do a basement too.
Yeah.
I've here lately. I've been seeing a lot, so it's like my mind's just ticking. When you were talking, you can do basements, you can do the top garage. Now, granted, those are a little bit higher. I mean, some of them. I hate to throw a number out, but you know,
like
those
$250. I mean,
well, and there's some even cheaper than that. I mean, there's some in the 140, 150. It all depends on what bells and whistles you want and how big you want, or if the basement. But you can keep it a little bit lower. I think it's a great idea. I love it. I'm so glad you mentioned that because they are so beautiful. You would honestly, if you had a whole neighborhood that had those garages, I don't think you would ever be able to tell. The front, they have a peak. It looks just like a home. I mean, not trying to hide what you live in, but you really would not know.
Right. Well, I mentioned a minute ago about when I bought my first house in the year 2000. I paid $70,000 for a 3-bed, 1-bath house with a carport, a full unfinished basement with a garage in the basement.
Amazing. Same.
And I mean, it was dated, sure. It was like 30 years old at the time, and it looked like it was 30 years old. It needed some love. It had a big hole in the kitchen wall from where the old, window AC was, because they didn't have HVAC when that house got built. And so they had pulled that air conditioner out, but nothing had ever really been done with the wall there. And I mean, now if you looked for homes that were $75,000 and under, I mean, it's either going to be a junked out single wide or something that's a total rehab, if you find anything at all. I mean, it's just
that don't exist.
Yeah. I mean, used to, if somebody called and, they were a first-time home buyer, 100,000 and under was your range, and now there's just nothing out there. Nope. So we've got to find some affordable housing solutions here. So if you've got money and you want to buy land and do this, give us a call. We'd love to jump on board and help you all. But all right, so anybody got anything else they want to say before we conclude for today?
It's been a good little session. I always love seeing you. It's a great start to my week.
All right. Well, have a great Monday, and we will see you in a couple of weeks for the next episode.